Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we are diving into something that is quite literally rewriting the rules of global security. We're talking about the invisible brain powering modern warfare. Forget the sci-fi movies for a second. The very real reality of modern defense is shifting, and it's shifting fast. We're moving away from the massive physical hardware we can see toward invisible algorithms operating completely silently in the background. It's a massive shift, it's moving at breakneck speed, and it's going to dictate global security for decades to come. So today, we're going to break down exactly how and why this is happening.
Okay, let's dive into this. 75. That's the number of newly developed AI-enabled military products that were recently showcased by the Ministry of Defense at the AIDef symposium. And this wasn't just some conceptual tech demo. These are actual, real, developed tools. This single number really proves that India is aggressively moving away from purely human-centric warfare and stepping boldly into the era of algorithm-centric warfare. But to really understand what those 75 products actually mean for us, we need a bit of a roadmap.
So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll cover the invisible brain of war. 2, the shift from metal to software. 3, the strategic impact on India. 4, the global race and ethical risks. And finally, number 5, India's asymmetric IT advantage. All right, Section 1, the invisible brain of war, defining military AI. Before we get into the heavy strategy, we really need to establish exactly what this technology does.
When we say military AI, what are we actually talking about? Well, we're talking about using machine learning algorithms to process just massive, unthinkable amounts of data instantly. It's about taking those insights to automate weapons systems and assist human commanders in making those split-second tactical decisions. Think of it like the ultimate tactical assistant, one that never sleeps, never panics, and can read gigabytes of data literally in the blink of an eye. This technology is the absolute foundation of the whole paradigm shift we're discussing today.
Moving right along to Section 2, from metal to software, the paradigm shift. So how exactly did we arrive at this point?
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is looking at how things used to be. Historically, Indian defense procurement was all about the metal. You bought heavy tanks, massive ships, supersonic jets. Software was, well, essentially an afterthought, just something you needed to make the metal run. But the new paradigm completely flips that on its head. Why? Because defense planners woke up to a terrifying truth. A relatively cheap drone, powered by incredibly advanced AI software, can completely obliterate a multi-million-dollar heavy metal tank. The software itself has become the true weapon.
And this realization triggered a rapid, incredible shift. Take a look at the timeline here. Back in 2018, recognizing the urgent threat and opportunity, the government formed a task force on AI in defense, and they moved fast. By 2019, the Defense AI Council, or DAIC, was established, led directly by the defense minister. Fast forward to 2024, and we see the actual fruits of that labor at the AIDef symposium. This rapid progression led directly to real-world deployments, things like AI systems used for facial recognition in Kashmir and autonomous drone swarms testing their capabilities out in the field today.
But here's the thing. This isn't just happening in dark, secret government basements. It's a massive collaborative effort. The key players driving this innovation start right at the top, with the Defense AI Council setting the policy. Then you've got the DRDO's dedicated AI labs, places like CAIR doing the heavy scientific lifting. But crucially, this whole ecosystem is now being fueled by hundreds of private Indian tech startups. They're bringing that fast, civilian agility to solve very rigid military problems.
Let's move to Section 3, Strategic Impact on India. Tactical Applications. What does this invisible brain actually mean for the troops on the ground?
The actual implementation of military AI in India really rests on 3 core pillars. First, solving cognitive overload. Second, the deployment of autonomous weapons. And third, utilizing predictive maintenance. Let's break these down one by one because each of these totally revolutionizes how a modern military operates.
Pillar number 1 addresses a very distinctly modern problem: cognitive overload. Imagine being an operator on an AWACS radar plane flying high above a combat zone. That plane is generating more data in a single minute than a human could read in a lifetime. An operator staring at a screen simply cannot process it all. There's just way too much noise. AI algorithms, however, can instantly sift through that entire mountain of data. They can pinpoint a hostile jet hiding in a sky full of commercial airliners and instantly recommend to the commander exactly which missile to fire.
And the result of solving that cognitive overload? It is entirely about speed.
For a human operator to analyze radar, verify a target, and select a weapon, you're talking minutes. In modern aerial combat, minutes are an absolute eternity. But for the AI algorithm, it takes milliseconds. This massive difference in reaction time creates an absolutely overwhelming tactical advantage on the battlefield.
And this brilliantly illustrates our second pillar, autonomous weapons. India is currently developing AI-driven loitering munitions, what you might hear called kamikaze drones. Now, once launched into an area, these drones don't rely on some guy with a remote control. They use onboard AI image recognition to actively hunt for enemy tanks completely on their own. Even if the enemy manages to jam their GPS and sever their radio links to the human operator, the AI doesn't stop. It keeps hunting and can execute the strike independently.
Okay, the third pillar isn't actually about destroying things. It's about keeping things flying. Predictive maintenance. The Indian Air Force is using AI to analyze the massive amounts of data coming from the sensors inside their fighter jets. The AI can actually predict exactly when a specific engine part is going to fail, before it actually breaks in midair. So not only does this save millions of dollars, but much more importantly, it actively saves pilots' lives.
Section 4. Global Race and Ethical Risks. The international context. Because, of course, India isn't developing these technologies in a vacuum.
Look, the global AI arms race is largely defined and led by the US with massive initiatives like Project Maven and China. Both of these superpowers are heavily investing billions of dollars into autonomous systems. India is in a position where it absolutely must keep pace. Why? Well, because if they don't, India's massive arsenal of legacy weapons, all that expensive metal we talked about, will just become instantly obsolete against AI-driven adversaries.
Keeping pace, though, comes with a really major hurdle. The data challenge. As you know, AI is entirely dependent on data, right? It needs massive, high-quality datasets to learn and become accurate. India's military, historically speaking, has struggled a bit with poor digital record-keeping. Overcoming this lack of organized historical data is probably one of the most significant roadblocks standing in the way of developing truly effective indigenous AI systems.
Furthermore, beyond all those technical challenges, there is a profound moral question sitting right at the center of this arms race. Should a machine ever be allowed to pull the trigger without a human in the loop? As these systems become more and more capable of operating independently, the international community is intensely debating whether an algorithm should hold the power of life and death on a battlefield. This is the massive ethical dilemma surrounding lethal autonomous weapons systems, or LAOS, which you'll often see referred to in the media as killer robots.
Section 5. India's asymmetric IT advantage. Strategic position. So, how exactly does India navigate this ethical minefield while still staying competitive?
To answer that huge ethical question, India is officially adopting what they call a human-on-the-loop philosophy. In this doctrine, the AI acts as the ultimate assistant. It analyzes all the overwhelming data, it identifies the targets, it even aims the weapons. But the system stops there. A human commander must always be the one to actually authorize the final lethal strike. It gives you the incredible speed of AI, but retains essential human moral accountability.
And implementing this highly complex software brings us to a stark juxtaposition that forms India's greatest strength. It's a known fact that India has historically struggled with complex military hardware, like, say, building indigenous jet engines from scratch. But contrast that with India's software advantage. India possesses one of the world's absolute largest and most highly skilled civilian IT talent pools. Leveraging those everyday civilian software engineers to build military AI creates a massive, asymmetric advantage that very, very few countries can match.
So the crucial point is this. If you take away absolutely nothing else from today's explainer, remember this fundamental shift. Warfare is moving from metal to software. It relies on autonomous systems and predictive maintenance, and it is all aimed at solving human cognitive overload.
I want to leave you with this final, somewhat chilling thought. We are currently standing on the edge of a completely new era of conflict. In a future defined not by minutes, but by milliseconds, how will this permanent shift from heavy metal to invisible software ultimately change the terrifying, split-second reality of tomorrow's battlefield? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time as we continue to unpack the complexities of our changing world.